No, I think there's a way to readjust your technique.
And how do you?
Right. So if I know it's always to me about I can use use my principles, but not my actual technique. So if the principle is I gotta have something I want, then that allows me to sell Ivory soap because I need Ivory soap. I want Ivory soap. You know what I mean? Because Ivory soap makes me smell good. See, that just created a behavior?
Yeah.
See how that just happened? If I sat there and go, well, I gotta have a character.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm adjusting my technique to the format that I'm working on. However, if I'm doing voiceover, I always say you're doing a character. So it's the same commitment, right? Like, and that's what's so great about brilliant voiceovers, right? Like, the first time I saw Aladdin, Robin Williams, he's gone, but he's the guy. Do you know what I mean? He's literally the genie. So how many things come out of that for him, right? Well, that genie can do anything. So that gave him permission to be as crazy as he actually is inside of that life, you know? But it's still a voiceover. Do you get me? So yeah, I think you can adjust it pending format. Okay? Questions?
Right here.
Yeah?
Right here.
Where are you?
Right here.
Oh, go ahead.
Would you say the same thing for under fives? You know, under fives you get the
No, under fives, I think you do more homework. You know, I think under fives, if you walk in there with a character, first of all, you'll simplify if you're prepared, right? If you're like, oh, it's just under 5 lines, let me do less. Then if you get thrown a loop, which you always will, especially in procedurals, right? If I'm doing a Law and Order, a procedural is a show that continually has the same procedure, right? So if I'm doing a Law and Order and I'm under 5 and I don't have a character, and I'm not specific about what that character is, especially their profession, because procedurals, mainly you have to have profession, right? You gotta have the job first. And I'm not clear on that, then I start acting, right? And then when I'm told to give the doctor the syringe, but doctor, do you really need the syringe? You know what I mean? And I've seen this. I saw this, I used to work on Law and Order SVU, and I've seen actors who come in there who is in this under 5, and they're doing 6 takes, not because they don't know their lines, but because they're trying, as opposed to just living, you know? Sometimes it's just fact, right? Most of the time you're doing under 5s, you're giving elements of those stories. That's why Law and Order was really a home for all these New York actors to start, right? And if you look at old Law and Orders, right when it started from 91 to 94, half the world that's working now started on that show, you know? And it's because they knew. They walked in there, they had a technique, they had a character, that's all they needed. And then, those casting directors were looking for great actors. So I think under 5s means you do a little, even more. You're more specific, you know? I think the real tough thing that this generation has to deal with is self-tapes. Self-tapes are they're really, really difficult. Walking into a casting director's office means you at least can bounce something off of somebody.
Right.
You get a reaction from somebody, right? But doing it at home alone keeps you in your head. So you have to really have a technique that serves you from soup to nuts about how to create and how to execute. And I think if you don't, with a self-tape, that's even more dangerous than with an under 5. Under 5s, they actually have to bring you in because they got to kind of see you. But self-tapes, they don't actually have to, they can look at the first 30, and it's true, the first 5 seconds of a self-tape determines whether they keep watching. Do you know what I mean? And they can just fast forward and move on. At least in the room, they can, say, okay, stop. Yeah, let's do this again. You know what I mean? So that becomes the issue there. Questions?
A lot of auditions are improv.
What do you mean?
Well, they give you a general thing, and we're going to improv.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But
You see this as a problem?
Well, no, you don't know exact. Sometimes they tell you.
Yes, because she's worried about doing it what?
Right.
Well, because they're not telling me, because I don't know. That for me is like the artistic orgasm. You're not telling me something? I can do anything in here? Anything? Do you know what I mean? I get excited.
Well, they kind of tell you what to do when you get there? Like
Doesn't
right
matter.
there?
I'm preparing a life. And there's no constraints on that life, maybe guidelines, but no constraints, because I'm not saying specific words. Oh, that's fucking exciting. That's pure art. Do you know? And when you get that, honey, you gotta get turned on. Do you know? That's why I love like Ang Lee. He never has you do the script. He just wants to meet you, talk to you. Then he'll give you something. Like, okay, you know, I want you to think about this, and then you talk out of character. I think it's really interesting when people do that. I'd rather that, you know, than having me get 2 pages without, you know, in a small paragraph that breaks down the character, and then tell me to go. I'd rather get a breakdown of the character and knowing other information. I'd be like, yeah, fine. I'm gonna go out there and fuck around, have some fun, you know. So that can get you to be turned on. Don't look at it as a problem. The only way you look at it as a problem is if you're trying to get it right or trying to book the job. Now, there are certain people that I say to them, walk in thinking you are never going to get this job. Walk in with that mindset. They are not going to hire me. Because what does that automatically do?
Freeze you up.
Oh, God, yeah. You're just going to go in there and have fucking... They're not going to hire me. Let me just fuck this all up. And when you do that, you become memorable. Do you know what I mean? Because the worry and concern that kept you restricted is gone. It's gone. So guys, when they give you stuff that is free, honor it. They're giving it to you because they want to see your choices. Choices are critical. Critical. They come out of your imagination, out of your intimacy, out of your intellect, and out of what? You guys forgot that other part of the issue. Huh? I said that. I said intellect. It's not your purpose. 4 parts of your instrument. Intellect, imagination, body, and intimacy. 4 parts of imagination, okay? So if they see your choices, that means they see you as a professional. If they don't see your choices, what ends up happening? Well, they just think you're green. They think you're amateur, and they put you in a separate pile. And then you feel obligated to come back and prove to them, well, I'm going to show them this audition, I'm going to be brilliant. And then that becomes the result, that I have to be brilliant, because Marcy Phillips loves me, and I got to show her. Right? And then you go in there and Marcy's like, what are you doing? Stop. Right? Questions. Okay, so when we talk, I'm going to move on, and you can ask me questions. I got something to do right after this, so if you want to ask me some questions, you better ask now. Yeah, good.
Can you go over intimacy a little bit more? I didn't kind of grab that.
Quite get that. Right. So when we talk about intimacy, what we really mean is in-to-me-see. That there's something going on beneath the eyes. Something internal. Now, this isn't necessarily vulnerability, even though I would say that's an easy way of saying it, right? Because joy can be a vulnerability, right? Excitement can be a vulnerability. But it's something internal that must be sent. This is the critical element of intimacy. It's not just something you feel in acting, it's something you send, okay? So in other words, I can have a feeling, right? And feelings usually start where? In our head, right? We're angry, we're sad. We think about it first, right? What's making us angry? What's making us sad? What's making us happy, right? Then after I let my body have it, right? Because there's physical manifestations of intimacy, right? Once I let my body have it, maybe then it turns into a sensation. And sensations, and we're going to talk about this too, in connection to need. Sensations are the actor's tool, not feelings, right? Because sensations are physical. They run through us, top to bottom, right? So I can have a feeling of I'm angry. I can hopefully let myself accept it, right? So I'm sitting there, in the thing of rage, right? Because rage is a sensation. Anger is a second-tier feeling, right? So I'm in this feeling of rage. Now, if I keep that here, right, just inside of me, and don't send it to who I'm talking to the back row of an audience, of a theater, then it doesn't matter. It has no weight to anything. Because it's not just how the audience takes it in. It's that my responsibility to the craft of acting is to put it out. And what we say is to make what is private public. Public, okay? Now, that does not mean facts. I don't have to tell the audience this is why the character is angry. What I get to do is have the sensation be sent so that the audience can take it in, right? And then make their own choice. And that's the genius of great art, right? 5 of us can listen to Bob Marley and we all hear different things. Because in Bob Marley, he's willing to have something internal be revealed. Right? Yeah. And if you ever seen him perform, his music takes him over. It takes him over. It becomes a spiritual thing for him. Right? If you ever watch any concert footage of him. That's because the sensation of whatever he's connecting to intimately, he's sending out. It's overwhelming. He's sending it out. There was a great thing, I don't know if anyone got a chance to see Bruce Springsteen on Broadway. If anyone saw it, he sits by the piano and he talks about his life. Everything he's saying is intimate. It is moving beneath everything he looks at in connection to what's going on inside of him, and yet he sends it. It isn't just him and the piano. It's him bringing us in to that level of world that he created inside of himself. And because of that, it was a wonderful, wonderful show. Now, I've seen a lot of one-people shows, right, where they're feeling something, and I just don't give a shit, right? They're up there devastated. They're stabbing their imaginary mother with a spoon, talking about how that is in connection to, why their hair is red. I've seen a lot of crazy shit with one-person shows, and I haven't given a shit because it doesn't get sent. Right? It stays in this little space. And that's not the craft. The craft means out. It has to go out. It just can't be contained. And that's why into me see. See it. So see it for the actor means send it. And that's really the critical element of intimacy. Okay? Any other questions? Intimacy is critical for what we call the first fundamental tool of Batson technique, which is need, okay? Need is a very tricky thing. It is, simply put, a core sensation. Does everybody know what this means? A core sensation? It is a sensation that has lived with you, inside of you, since you were very, very young, okay? It is in connection to the 2 most fundamental people in your life, which are who? Mom and Dad, okay? And Susan, because she's brilliant and because she read tons and tons of psychology, she went, well, look, at some point, this thing that happens with our parents, there's a thing that happens. We want something. We don't know why we want it. We don't know how to articulate the thing that we want, but we want something. And this thing that we want, we can never fully get it. Therefore, this thing, this core sensation develops out of something unfulfilled. And what we mean by unfulfilled is that because no parent is perfect, no parent is perfect. We all understand that. So maybe you can forgive them. Okay, that's a whole other thing. No parent is perfect. No beings who are limited send to the child develops a core sensation, what Susan brilliantly called a need. A need is something we need done unto us, to be seen, to be heard, to be held. We need for affection, need for a mother, need for a father. There are thousands of needs, all in connection to a character's mother and father. Now, automatically, because of this, backstory becomes critical in the creation of this first fundamental tool. So that means to be able to really understand or own a character's need, I need to first imagine and clarify a character's mother or father. Now, just like if you're going to play the character of me, there are details you need to know about how I was raised. Acting class happened on top of me. Literally, on top, in the top floor of my apartment. So that automatically fucked me up, right? But also, more importantly, what am I constantly hearing when I got home from kindergarten? Yeah! Yeah! Like constant. So automatically, am I inviting friends over? No. Hell no. So I really, when I go home at 5 years old, from being in New York in 1978, and everyone who's lived in New York in 1978 knows New York was fucking crazy, right? I come home, I sit down in my room, I close the door, and do I have any peace? No. Is there any quiet? No. It's also the 70s. So these actors are doing tons of what?
Cocaine.
Drugs! Cocaine. Now they're doing it so much because they have to find a place to prep. Where are they going to go? Well, let's go in the Carl's room. He's asleep, right? They're going to put that shit under his bed. And so all of a sudden, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and there's this big dude going, shh. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Right? This is a detail that's going to clarify my mom if you're playing the character of me. You guys get that? In the creation of the character of Carl, there is something that you have to know, right? That ultimately, his mother is doing everything she possibly can to raise him alone. Because the father is not there. But because of who she is, remember the story I told you about me begging her to not be an actress? She knows she has to teach. Because Lee Strasberg said to her, teach a class. Come here, that's how you can make money while you're pregnant. She realized that she could do that, and she started teaching. But because she starts teaching, this kid, who she loves more than her own life and the existence of the world, starts to hear crazy noises, have crazy people come downstairs and pick out their drugs they hid in the bottom of his bunk bed. So now, even more importantly, this kid starts to hate what? Acting. He starts to loathe it with a passion and commitment that is bigger than God. Like he sits and dreams of killing all actors just to try to get his mother's focus, right? So that she can be like, Daniel Rothenberg's mother, who comes, stays at home, wears an apron. That was a big thing for me. Like, oh, your mom wears an apron? And makes things, and has cookies when you come home. That's wonderful. Because for me, I have to walk upstairs in the middle of an extra-actor circle just to shower. Right? So I'm wearing my little, towel, going, oh, you're going to see me naked, and then go in the shower, because the only shower is on the same floor where the class is. So then I got to come back down after I shower, and then, because it's class, I can't do what? Make any noise. These are all details of backstory that clarify my need. So, it automatically, in the creation of this first fundamental tool, forces you to research and imagine. And this is the genius of this fundamental tool. It automatically puts you in two priorities of your instrument that need to show up. Your intellect and your imagination, even before you perform. So automatically you have a sense of who this person, how this person was raised, how they grew up, how they saw themselves, what did they see, how that all affected them, and then you can make a choice about the character's need, okay? We always say the first thing that you want to remind yourself is the minute you have a need, you are in what we call the bottom of the character. And this bottom is the only place you and the character can meet. Everything else, even if the character was raised in your house and had your exact mother and father, they are different from you. Even if the character was raised across the street from where you actually grew up, they are different from you. But every character has a mom and dad, and that mom and dad, because they are not perfect, had limitations that translated into a core sensation because of the child, the way they needed something that they could not quite articulate. And then what's even more brilliant about this bottom is it never goes away. Because no matter what we think, no matter how much therapy, money, and joy we bring into our lives, we cannot go back in time. We cannot fix problems that we've had, feelings and sensations that have moved us. And if you think about it, how much does your bottom, the bottom of who you are, influence your choices, the way you see yourself, who you invite into your life, right? What addictions you get, how do you hold on to those addictions, or how do you overcome them? All at some point spring from a bottom inside you. And that's why if you ever been in the rehab, the first thing you talk about is who? Your mother and your father. It's the first thing you discuss. So again, if I know that from this understanding there is a creation that I get to own about the character, where we can finally come together, and it's the only place we can meet. It puts you in a responsibility and a clarity of how your instrument begins. And this is why we have a class called Developing Your Own Method. And again, the first exercise is called the Personal Private Moment. Throughout this class, you will learn how to specify more and more your need. Now, you meet with me after you audit, and if some of you audited and run away, I totally understand. Fuck that. Right? You've seen that class, you're like, oh God, no. Oh, no. Right? And you meet with me, and we talk about your need. Now, some of you get very shocked that I can define your need pretty quick. But the reason why is I am seeing 18,000 different details as you are talking about your mother and your father. I'm not just listening to you. I'm looking at how your body moves as you're talking. I'm looking to where your eyes look, how you physically feel. Are you agitated? Are you in protection of them? And therefore, that's how, processing this information that quickly, how I can start to give you what I call an overall need. Now, a lot of people get confused about this thing, and they go, well, can't you have multiple needs? And I'm like, no. Why do you think I say no? Because you only have what? One mom and one dad. Now, from there, usually if you're thinking you have multiple needs, you are not doing what? Researching. You are not being as specific as you possibly can about how you felt, how you were raised, all the details around your life. You're choosing one need in connection to what? What you hope you are. What you want to be. What you feel you are being perceived as. And some of you wish that you were crazy. Like some of you wish you really had a psychological ailment, you know? And I tell you, I wished it for years. I was like, oh man, I hope I'm manic depressive. Because that can explain a lot, you know? I hope I'm bipolar, you know? Because it means, you know, it makes sense for the moods, you know? But no, really what I was doing was avoiding what the truth and the authentic way in which I felt I was raised and what I actually saw, how that hit me. Because what I didn't want to admit was the simplest things are usually the truest, right? So really to me what's brilliant about this is it's simple in the and simple in the way you connect and complex in the definition. And it forces the actor to be studious, to be understanding, right? The fact that both my parents were actors makes sense that I hate actors. Makes sense that I keep telling you, go do something else. Because I saw it. I saw it. It also makes sense because I saw tons of actors go crazy and lose their lives and fail and just never recover. So it worried me, right? Now the real interesting horror of my life is, what am I doing now? You know what? I'm doing the exact thing at 5 years old I said I would never fucking do. I am in complete betrayal of this little child who looks at me sometimes going, you could have been a lawyer. You could have been Blair Underwood from LA Law. And you could have had tons of fun. Da-da-da-da-da. You chose the one thing that we made a promise, because I promised myself to not do. And so that automatically brings up this beautiful conflict if you're playing Carl. You're being something that you as a kid really hated and despised. That's a wonderful information about character. And what you always want to remind yourself is once we start to clarify the need, we start to see character struggle. We start to feel it. It becomes a part of who they are. These conflicts, these perceptions, how they dealt with them, how they work them out in the slice of life that the play or the movie is showing. And once you start to have that level of clarity, you become undeniable. Now, everybody might not like Nicole Kidman's performance in Big Little Lies, but everyone respects it. Do you guys get that? And that's why, just from this fundamental tool, this is an Oscar-winning technique. Because automatically, you could feel she had something to say. There was some core understanding of who this character was. And she lived it moment to moment, physically, as well as emotionally. And that's what separated her performance. That's what riveted all of us. And this is where DYOM originated from, okay? Interestingly enough, the more that you do DYOM, the clearer you are that you must accept your need first, your personal need first, before understanding it for a character. Why do you think that is? Why do you think this class, we call it developing your own method, allows you to start to see character first?
Because how are you supposed to see the need in the character if you can't even see the need in yourself?
Right, that's one, right? There's no way for you to be able to identify it, one.
And you can kind of tangle your need and character need to get connected more tightly to the character.
Well, sometimes it gets confusing, right? Sometimes you think every character has your need, which is not the case.
I'm not saying that your need, but I'm just saying that you need to be able to connect the character need to your...
Right, you need to find the bridge between you and the character's need.
You need a base.
Say that again.
You need your base.
Yes. What does that mean?
To me, it would mean that if I start from my own needs, I would be able to identify, learn, forgive,
or more importantly, because forgive. Hey, hey, forgive. Look, I still work with the woman, and she's still a crazy ass bitch to me. Do you know what I mean? Like this, I go home and go, oh God, my mom. You know, so we're forgiveness. I'm working through for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But
It's still
what
part
it
of that
does,
base, isn't it?
but what this foundation does is allow me to experience the character's need, right? Because it's not psychological. Susan didn't think of this as a way to help people. Because God forbid, this is not what you do in therapy. You try to get over this core sensation. You try to move on from it. You know? I had a therapist once go, Jesus Christ, now I get the difference. Because I brought him somebody who was working on their need. And they thought if they could only understand their need, they could be in a better psychological position. And the therapist really, after hearing this, was like, I am sorry. This is the exact opposite of what we do. The exact. We try to heal that hole. We try to have you work on filling that hole, right? These crazy ass motherfuckers want you to drown in that hole. Do you know what I mean? So the experience provides the foundation. And in that way, it also shows up physically.
So this core need, is it derived from brokenness?
No,
or,
it's not yet.
Or his like
See, now
natural.
here's the great thing. Is it existential? Right? Is it spiritual? Is it psychological? What Susan found, and this is why, again, she's brilliant, is she found it's all three. Right?
Right.
When you start as a kid, right, and you don't necessarily get what you want, which is different than what you need, right? You have a tantrum. When you don't get what you need, you don't know how to say it. You don't know how to say it, right? So the fact that my dad saw me once a year, I still thought he was the most amazing person in the world. I needed to see him more. The fact that he touched me when we were together became this wonderful, beautiful experience to me that made me feel horribly ashamed later on. I could not articulate that complexity. Do you get me? So there's a spiritual element of the shame, the way in which it literally took away elements of my personal foundation, of my own sense of innocence and my own sexuality. Also cut my faith, my belief in God, all got dismantled because of that shame. Because that shame had physical manifestations. But the one thing I could articulate, if anyone asked me, my dad's the coolest man in the world. So that goes directly in contradiction to this thing, right? So is it part existential? Yes. Is it part philosophical and psychological? Absolutely. Is it part spiritual? Absolutely. What Susan found a way of combining was how all these things participate in one tool that allows you to stay and give you a foundation for character. And that to me is the genius of that tool. Do you get me? Now,
it's hard. I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah,
because
see, and here's the
my
crazy
wheels
thing.
are like
Understanding it is nowhere near as important as experiencing
Sure.
it, right? And a lot of people go, well, I have to understand it to experience it. You don't. It's a door that you've closed in your own being so you could function in life.
You don't. Oh, we're talking about me personally.
Yeah.
and the I'm
character.
thinking about characters.
Even if for character,
Yeah.
right? The need is there for the character. It allows you to connect to them. But are they aware of their needs? No. But the actor, in connecting to that life they're creating, without us seeing the puppet strings, without us seeing them manipulate these moment-to-moment things, have a way of slipping into the being of that person just through this foundation. Just as much as, first and foremost, to play you, and to know your need allows me to slip into the character of you.
Right.
You get me? And that becomes the way in which to go. Now, you got to take time and study here for me to tell you how to